A suburban cul-de-sac costs a city 3 times what a dense neighborhood does to maintain, and nobody's tracking where the difference goes. Here's the trick. Most people think urban sprawl happens because land is cheap and houses are affordable. That's the surface story. The real story is infrastructure debt. When a city approves a new subdivision 50 miles outside the city limits, it doesn't just approve houses. It approves miles of new roads, water lines, sewer pipes, electrical grids, and emergency services that have to stretch across empty land to reach those homes. So who pays for that infrastructure? Technically, the developer covers initial construction. But here's where the accounting gets interesting. Once the roads are built, the city takes ownership. Maintenance becomes the city's responsibility forever. A road serving a dense neighborhood, say 50 households per block, spreads that maintenance cost across 50 property tax bills. A suburban road serving the same 50 households spread across 2 miles. That maintenance cost per household just tripled. Water systems tell the same story. A sprawling suburb needs longer pipes, more pumping stations, and more treatment capacity than a compact neighborhood. But consumption stays roughly the same, so the infrastructure cost per gallon of water delivered shoots up. The city either raises water rates, hitting all residents, or absorbs the loss and cuts maintenance elsewhere. Both paths drain the same account. Emergency services follow the same logic. A fire station in a dense urban core can serve maybe 10,000 people within a 5-minute response time. A fire station in sprawl, it covers the same population spread across 20 times the land area. Response times climb, insurance premiums climb with them, and the city has to fund more stations to maintain the same coverage. That's real money leaving the budget. But sprawl doesn't just cost money through infrastructure. It destroys the economic math of the land itself. Dense neighborhoods generate tax revenue per square mile that sprawl can't match. A single city block in a dense area might have a grocery store, a pharmacy, restaurants, offices, and apartments stacked vertically. That's sales tax, property tax, and business licenses all concentrated in one footprint. Sprawl spreads the same economic activity across 10 times the land. Parking lots kill tax revenue. A car dealership needs 5 acres. In a dense city, that space would hold 3 apartment buildings, generating ongoing tax income. In sprawl, that dealership generates 1 transaction, then sits mostly empty. The math doesn't work. Cities approve sprawl anyway because the upfront developer fees and property sales taxes create a short-term revenue bump. And here's the trick most municipal budgets never catch. That short-term revenue bump creates a fiscal illusion. A city approves sprawl in year 1, collects developer fees and construction sales taxes. Politicians declare victory. But by year 5, when the infrastructure maintenance bills come due and the long-term tax revenue per capita drops, the previous administration is gone. The new leadership inherits a structural deficit. Environmental costs sit outside the budget entirely, which is why they're never counted. Sprawl requires clearing vegetation, which increases stormwater runoff. Cities have to build bigger drainage systems and treatment ponds. More impervious surface means more flooding during heavy rain. Homeowners file insurance claims. Insurance companies raise premiums citywide. The cost disperses across the system rather than appearing as a line item. Then there's the transportation cost nobody accounts for properly. Sprawl forces longer commutes. Longer commutes mean more fuel consumption, more vehicle wear, more road maintenance. A person commuting 10 miles each way burns roughly 5 times as much fuel as someone commuting 2 miles. Over a lifetime, that's tens of thousands of dollars per household in fuel and vehicle costs. That money leaves the local economy entirely. Local economies also hemorrhage retail spending. When sprawl spreads, it fragments the customer base. A downtown district with 5,000 residents within walking distance supports a healthy mix of independent shops. Sprawl spreads those same 5,000 people across 30 square miles. They can't walk anywhere. They drive to big box stores and chains. Local retail dies. Tax revenue from small business licenses disappears. The remaining commercial space sits vacant. Property values tell the story clearly. In dense neighborhoods, property values hold steady or appreciate because the infrastructure and tax base are stable. In sprawling suburbs, property values depend entirely on continued outward expansion. Once the sprawl stops, because the city finally runs out of developable land or can't afford the infrastructure debt, those suburban properties stagnate. Homeowners are stuck holding depreciating assets in a system they didn't understand was unsustainable. The environmental impact compounds over decades. More sprawl means more habitat fragmentation. Animals can't move between fragmented patches of land. Biodiversity collapses. Fewer pollinators, fewer pest predators. Agricultural productivity drops. Food costs rise, or cities have to import more food from farther away, which increases transportation costs and carbon footprint. Here's what the forensic accounting reveals. Sprawl doesn't actually cost less. It costs more, far more. The difference is timing and visibility. Upfront costs are visible and concentrated. Long-term costs are diffuse and delayed. City-approved sprawl collects immediate revenue and the bill arrives as a structural deficit years later, spread across water rates, property taxes, insurance premiums, and declining property values. The true cost is hidden in the system. Different cities have discovered this truth at different times. Some learned it early enough to reverse course. Others doubled down and are now managing catastrophic infrastructure deficits. The pattern is consistent. The cities that controlled sprawl have lower tax burdens, better services, and more stable property values. The cities that allowed unlimited sprawl are now facing the bill. But why does sprawl keep happening? Because the people making the decisions, developers and politicians, benefit from the short-term revenue surge. Developers build and sell. Politicians get credit for approving new housing and tax revenue. Then they leave office. The next administration inherits the structural deficit and has to make unpopular cuts or raise taxes. Nobody traces the problem back to the sprawl decision made 10 years earlier. The unseen costs of urban sprawl are unseen because they are distributed across a dozen different budgets and accounting systems. Water departments, fire departments, road maintenance, property insurance, fuel consumption, retail revenue, environmental remediation. None of them talk to each other. Each system sees its own piece of the cost. Nobody sees the whole picture until the fiscal crisis arrives. That suburban cul-de-sac costing 3 times as much to maintain, that's not an anomaly, it's the norm. And the cost keeps compounding as infrastructure ages, roads crack, pipes corrode, and the tax base per household stays too low to fund proper replacement. What started as an affordable housing decision becomes a permanent drag on municipal finances. Understanding this accounting matters because it explains why cities make the decisions they do, why your taxes and utility bills climb, and why some neighborhoods thrive while others decline. The spreadsheets tell the story. You just have to follow the cash. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the hidden economics shaping your world. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.